This is something that we've already been through, figuring out where mom and or dad should
Hmm.
live.
Hmm.
As far as independent living, assisted living, memory
Hmm.
care, it's hard to decide.
And as we've gone through it ourselves, we realize, wow, it helps when you can understand actually even just the terminology, because just that can get pretty confusing.
Yes.
Today, we're bringing in Debbie Douglas of Oasis Senior Advisors, Austin, Central Texas. Thanks so much for being with us, Debbie.
Glad to be here.
As we kind of mentioned, it is sometimes it's just confusing because we don't understand what all the terms mean. Assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, rehab, whatever. All of them get really confusing. So let's break down kind of the different types of care that our parents might need. This is, of course, assuming that they're not living at home, right? This is assuming that they're going to live somewhere other than at home or with you with at home.
And the first option is independent living, which is kind of like living in an apartment, except there are meals provided.
Right. So I think when we think independent living, we're thinking of a 55 plus apartment, but independent living really does mean more of a supportive environment. So you have an apartment of your own, but there are meals, housekeeping, activities, transportation, the utilities are included. So it's just a more supportive environment. So you're not having maintenance, you're not having to clean, you're not cooking. You've got activities right in the building. So when the weather is bad, or you're making friends, you have people to eat with. So it's independent. You come and go as you please. A lot of people still drive, but it is a more supportive environment.
I kind of like to think of it similar to a dorm. I mean, you have more than just a room when you're in independent living, but kind of that environment where you're going to have your own space, but you also have the support of that community.
Absolutely.
And just because you mentioned the 55 and over, let's just nail down what that is. That is more going to be a 55 and older apartment complex, which is truly more just an apartment complex that caters to people who are 55 and older, right?
Yes. The amenities they have are like community rooms, usually a pool, things like that. And sometimes the utilities are included, but yes, there's no meals, there's no housekeeping, there's no staff. There's not, there's like leasing staff, but there's not an activities director. There's not all the other support.
Okay. So just to kind of know that that's like the basic, I guess you start with the 55 plus community. If they really just want to get out of a big house, perhaps, and downsize a little bit, or want to just have less responsibility of the upkeep of a house. And then next would be a little bit more care, if you will, is the independent living.
Yeah. And with independent living, I think a lot of people are scared to take that step. They don't want to leave their house that they've owned for years. And I know my dad was a little bit hesitant because he pictured the nursing home that my grandfather had to live in the last few years of his life. What do we need to do to try to help them see that oftentimes it's a better place for them?
Really like living on a cruise ship.
It is very much like a hotel or a cruise ship atmosphere. I think a few things are important for people to really think about. One is the socialization. And when we think of independence, we often think of living at home, but we can be a lot more independent longer if we have those supports. If we're not up on a ladder trying to fix something or putting in a light bulb, if we're not trying to cook meals when we're tired and not feeling great, if we have people to eat with, to talk to play cards with without going out into the weather, all of those things actually keep us healthier and keep us more independent. So I think it's changing the view of independence.
Interesting. Right. Because I know in our situation with my mom, she was in her home, not driving anymore. And so often there wasn't much to do. It was difficult to go places. It was very lonely. She liked activities and couldn't get to them very easily. And frankly, one of the biggest selling points was not having to cook anymore. So that was a big selling point.
Yeah. It would be for me right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not able to be completely independent, because I think in independent living, you have to be able to get down the stairs in case of an emergency, or, there's definitely certain criteria or evaluations that are done. The next step would be if you need some care, that would be assisted living.
So assisted living is ideal for people who do need to have caregivers in the building 24/7. The care needs might not be heavy yet, but they still have a need. So in independent living, you could hire somebody to come in for 4 hours, a couple days a week, let's say, and help you get in and out of the shower, go to an appointment, fill your med box. But if you need help some mornings, some evenings, getting to meals, you needed assisted living, because then the assistance is there 24/7.
Mhm.
You push a button and somebody can come and help you. And so if you don't know exactly the little bit of help you need, the timing of it,
Mhm.
then you would be independent living with 24/7 extra care,
Yeah.
which does not financially make sense. So for most people, assisted living, once you need more than a few hours
Mhm.
a day at home or a few hours a week in an independent living,
Mhm.
then it starts to make more sense. And there's something reassuring about being able to press that button and knowing that there's a caregiver in the building.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think though it's hard for a lot of us, the adult children, to either decide where should mom or dad go. Do they need that assisted living?
Mhm.
And sometimes I think it's hard for us to admit that they need the assisted living. So in that respect, what do we do?
I think you really look at their everyday life and you look at what you're concerned about. Are you concerned about meals and housekeeping? Or are you concerned that they're not taking their meds properly? Or are you concerned that they can't really, their mobility is a little bit worse?
Mhm.
Or are you concerned that they can't get dressed by themselves and they fall often? Things like that. I think you have to look at their everyday life and say, what am I concerned about? Really, what am I concerned about?
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't realize because we see them for an hour or two.
Mhm.
You know, going and spending a night with your parents makes a world of difference, because then they can't hide it all that
Mm.
well. So yeah, I think instead of seeing it, again, instead of viewing it as a negative, I think it's us as the children, as well as helping them to see it as a positive, to have that help.
And there are 2 levels of assisted living, but that gets kind of complicated, right? So we'll just know that there's 2 different levels of assisted living, which the one gives more care than the other. Is that the simple?
Exactly. And I say always ask what care. And when I'm working with someone, I get all of the care in order so that I know. And then the other thing to remember too is that we always want to put somebody in the like least restrictive place, right? Because that's what we're comfortable with and that's what makes us feel better. But the truth of the matter is that if your parent is 90 years old and having some health issues, putting them in a light assisted living or an independent living is probably not a good answer, because you're probably going to have to move them in a
Mm.
short period of time.
Yeah.
So I try to help people look at all of those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Look at your, if you're on the fence about it, look at their age, look at their health, look at their physical mobility now, because you don't want to have to move them if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's something that us, the adult children, often don't know about, is that there are people like you, the senior advisors out there, who can give a better
Perspective.
perspective about where mom and dad should live.
Absolutely. If you find somebody who's local to the area, who knows the communities, who's been doing it for a long time, who cares about, is going to give you the information,
Mhm.
without worrying about whether you're going to be a client or, just gives you that information, because that's really important. There's just a lot of behind the scenes things, and there's things that, we see them in our own family, right? The experiences you all have now give you the opportunity to tell other people, whoa, look out for that, right?
Mhm.
So an advisor, not only have we done it with our own families several times over, but we've done it with a lot of clients. And so we can offer that.
Mhm.
But it does help to have somebody local, somebody who you can talk to,
Mhm.
who's going to get to know your situation.
Right.
Right, because every situation is different.
That's right.
And
Yes.
and when you are in assisted living, how does memory care fit into that? Because that's memory care is technically, I guess, a type of assisted living.
It is. They're an assisted living license, but they specialize in people who have moderate and above memory loss and confusion. A lot of people don't realize with dementia, with Alzheimer's, confusion is a big part of it. It's not just memory loss. So again, you have to look at your parent. If they can't remember to press the call button, then assisted living may not be enough for them.
Yeah.
Between assisted living and memory care are residential care homes. They're smaller. Many of them are able to do a really great job with giving care to people with memory loss and confusion, because they've designed their place somewhat like a memory care designs their place. So the nice thing about a memory care is that the building is set up, the care staff is trained, the activities are designed. It's all, even the meals are designed for people with memory loss and confusion.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing, because you can't say to somebody with memory loss, what would you like for dinner tonight?
Right. Here's the menu, right?
Here's 4 things, or, it has to be more clear cut for them. And they need more supervision. They need more interaction. They need staff who recognizes when they're overstimulated or understimulated. And an assisted living is not always prepared for that. And then there's wandering and door locks and things like that definitely come into play.
Right. So I was going to say that is also a difference too, right? With memory care, it's usually going to be a secure facility.
Yes, there's alarms on the doors. So when somebody opens a door, staff go running. And
a residential care home, just so that people can visualize, that's literally oftentimes just a big house that someone has converted into a care home.
Yes, it can be anywhere from 3 people to, let's say, 16.
Okay.
Is usually the max. So yes, it is. And some of them are so well done and have such great staffing, but like everything else, not everything's created equal. And if they only have 3 people, they're not governed by the same agencies as a bigger place. So you definitely want to do your homework. It's not right for everyone, but it's the perfect situation for some people, and even some memory care people who they don't want them in a bigger place with
just more people.
Yeah.
Yeah, more. Sometimes they're louder if they're bigger. Sometimes they're not, but just.
Yeah. And I think the thing that can be so overwhelming for us, the adult children, is that when we're trying to help figure out where mom and or dad should go, is that there are so many options. And then people start saying, well, maybe you need a SNF, a skilled nursing facility. Or, oh, no, you just need rehab, or you just need this.
Or a long-term care.
There are so many things out there, and some are short-term, some are long-term, but that's where it can be so overwhelming.
People do not realize that a nursing home is really designed for medical care, more medical care. And so people assume that if you need a walker, or you need help getting in out of bed, or you need help eating, or people just assume then you must need a nursing home. And that's just not true. There's so many assisted livings and memory cares that have Hoyer lifts, who can handle a catheter, who they handle a lot of things. So I always say to people, definitely look at all the options, because there are more than just like our go-to. Even after a surgery, a hip surgery, the doctor's like, okay, got to go to rehab, or you've got to go. Well, a 95-year-old can't do, 21 hours of
PT
therapy all week, or so you have to weigh that out, and they might be able to go back to their assisted living or their memory care and get therapy in there.
Yeah.
So I guess it's good to remember that typically a skilled nursing facility and or a rehab, those are going to be temporary options.
Yes, unless somebody has no money, qualifies, and needs Medicaid, because then more of them take Medicaid than any other entity.
This skilled nursing facility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that opens up a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like another discussion.
Okay.
But to me, the biggest thing is that you have to have your eyes open to be able to look at everything, but don't be afraid to ask for help, because that's what senior advisors like you can do.
Absolutely. Ask for help. Ask questions. Just call and ask questions. Email and ask questions. We don't mind. We'll answer questions, all day long. That's fine. You don't have to be ready to move. I love people who look early.
Yeah.
We get people who are like, well, I'm not sure yet. I want you to know what's out there. I want you to know what the costs are.
Mhm.
Budget, we all have a budget, right? So we need to know. And if your budget's tight and we can help you see that you can live in an independent living and just get 4 hours a week of help and you're going to be fine, or your family can come over and help you a couple times a week and save you money.
Mhm.
We want you to be able to see all of those different nuances
Mhm.
so that when you're making your choices, because a lot of people are in a gray area.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And last question, which is, because I know this always comes up, is the cost. Is it fair to say that pretty much independent living, assisted living, memory care is all going to be most of the time private pay?
Yes, unless you have some long-term care insurance
Okay.
through a policy. Veterans can get some help. It's called aid in attendance.
Mhm.
But yes, for the most part, it's private pay. So there's a handful in Central Texas, as an example, that take Medicaid. Other parts of the country, since we're talking to other parts of the country and even the state have some different things. So they may be able to find Medicaid accepting assisted living. Our area of Texas just does not have very much of that.
Okay.
Again, another
ask-
example why you should
ask
ask
the
for
question.
help.
That's
Yes. Thank you.
Again, yes.
That's right. Debbie, thank you so much for all the help that you give, and thanks for all the ideas you've given us today.
Oh, happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a good reminder that it can get really confusing really fast, but hopefully through this interview, you at least know the terminology and perhaps the questions to ask so that you can get the answers you need and find the right fit for your parents.
Yeah, because the right fit helps tremendously. I know we've found the right fit for your mom, my dad. It helps a lot. Good luck to everyone. If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, please let us know. Parenting aging parents.